There we go. Okay, we are recording. All right, so this is the second and never last, but the last for the moment that we will do on Shin Aleph, which is a long and amazing Siman, really. I think in a lot of ways. If I can, not that I'm ever going to say Siman's not amazing, but I think this one's amazing. Yeah, I'm a little biased towards, as I said, to weather conditions for this one and what I chose, but we'll work our way through. I think just talking about Nahum, we'll do a little bit more, spend more time on Shulchan Aruch a little bit, and see the Mishnah Berurah when we need. You guys, I did send out possible things we're going to do today. Yeah, that's how. Oh, Ralph Lexi's here too. Look at that. So, um, okay, let us get started. Okay, and if anyone has Zoom issues, by all means, do what you need to do to stay with us. Let's start with Lamed Hey in the Shulchan Aruch with Seif Lamed Hey. And we may or may not do some Mishnah Berurah. There's actually two reasons. We read this in class, but that I want to just remind us what Rav Nachum said on this. I may point us something I think in the charts at Sion, actually, not in the Mishnah Berurah, if I remember correctly. Maybe Max, is your mic working now? Do you have
It's working. Can you just say one more time?
Yeah, we're of course in Siman Shin Aleph in Seif Lamed Hey. And if you would like to read for us.
Sure. Okay. Levadim hakashim asur lahaviam birshut harabim o becharmelit kishehu meutaf bahem v'im enam kashim harbe mutar.
Good.
So this was the felt.
Yeah.
So hard felt, and it's usher to bring them into Rishut Harabim or into a Carmelit when you're wrapped in them. But if they're not so hard, then you can.
Exactly. And so what's going on here?
So it seems like whatever this leather isn't really a garment.
Good.
When it's harder.
Yeah, and in fact, take a look at Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Lamed Kuf Lamed Levadim Hakashim.
She'in derech malbush milevadim hakashim. V'havi kamasui.
Yeah.
V'havi kamasui v'asur.
Good.
Right, so it's not derech malbush.
Exactly.
It's a masui.
So right, this was a big thing that Rav Nachum was trying to get to, and I just kind of want to repeat it, is this theory that if you're wearing something in the derech malbush, but people don't do that, then it's asur, derabanan, seemingly, right? But we'll see there are places where the gezerah doesn't apply, right? Like for instance, saving certain things, or like when there's like being komsar, different places where we don't generally say the gezerot of Chazal apply, they don't apply there. But in general, if it's not something that people normally wear, it actually goes per the custom of the place, or the like how people wear things there. And if people don't wear them there, then that's not something you can wear out on Shabbat in the Rishut Harabim. So yeah, Reuben, please.
This line in here, She'ein derech mabush levadim hakashim behave kamasui be'asur, is that like causative? It's not derech mabush, therefore it says if it's a masui, so it's like ein derech mabush equals
Exactly.
masui, or like ke'ilu or ra'eh she'i.
Yeah.
It's like
Even though I just want to be clear, you're doing it derech malbush, but it's we're she'ein derech mabush milevadim hakashim. Not that the way you're putting it on isn't like wearing it, but
it's the object itself.
Exactly.
Okay, right. Okay, great.
So yeah, it's not just about how you're wearing it. Sometimes it's about the chefsa, to put it in very brisker terms. So yeah, and I think that's important, right? And this could be culturally dependent, right? It's I do actually remember, like, I don't know, it was 5 years ago when we learned Hilchot Shabbos. Rav Nachum was talking about, it might be, very different, when you have local garbs. Nowadays in the United States, people wear, everything. We've got a lot, it's, really nice mix of people. But, if I wore a suit in some areas of the world at one point in history, that would have looked really weird. And maybe was not derech malbush in that place. But on the other hand, if you wore, I don't know, I do karate, so I can say this, maybe a gi. I know about gis a little bit, right? A gi, if I walked around the street with a gi in some places in the world, they would look at me like, well, who are you? That's not that we don't wear things like that, right? So no, we saw, Rav Moshe said if it's on the skin and it's derech malbush, it doesn't matter potentially, right, with a watch. So not 100% clear. That might be an exception. And so maybe, if you're wearing it directly on your skin is different from this felt that you're wearing probably on your clothes, right? Something like that. So, okay, good. That's why I really wanted to see that. I think this was a very demonstrative Siman here. And the Mishnah Berurah like completely spells out. The interesting thing, if you want, on a side note, to look at the Rambam and the Mishnah Berurah talking about how essentially it was an attempt to make the Rambam work with Rashi, and the Rambam might have a different opinion here. But for another time, I want to move on to Lamed Vav. But this is, I think, also a very important one. So maybe, let's see, Ruben, would you like to read Lamed Vav in the Shulchan Aruch?
I would be happy to. Okay. מותר לצאת בשבת בשני לבושים זה על גבי זה, בין לצורכו בין לצורך חברו. בין שהם שני חלוקים, בין שהם שני סרבלים, פירוש סרבל כסות העליון. בין שהם שתי החגורות, זו על גבי זו, ואפילו אין מלבוש מפסיק ביניהם. Should I stop here before the
Yeah,
Rama?
stop here before the Haggah.
After the Haggah, okay. So it's permissible to go out on Shabbat with 2 layers of clothing, one on top of the other, whether it's for your need or the need of your fellow. Whether they are two, my understanding of a chaluk is it's like an undershirt. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a garment. It's a shirt, a top garment, and it does compared to a sarbal. It's an undergarment. So yeah, it's.
Right, yeah, right. Compared to something that's an overgarment, a sarbal. Whether they are 2 belts, one on top of the other. Even if there's no cloth that separates one belt from the other, or
Right.
I guess anything from the other, not just the belts.
Yeah, I think he means the belts actually, just the way the Ramban played out.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Why would having a garment between the belts make sense? I had to think about this for a minute. This is why I'm asking you guys.
Could it be that it's doing something more than it would be if it's just a second belt on one garment?
Exactly, it's cinching a second garment, right? You've got one garment. Imagine, this is the extreme. You have 2 pairs of pants on that you need to hold up. Then maybe 2 belts makes sense. It's kind of in a different way. So, yeah, good. And this one I think is really right. What's the Shulchan Aruch saying here? Like, why would I wear 2 pairs of clothes? There is a Mishnah Berurah on this, but you guys can get this.
You're in Ann Arbor, Michigan in January.
Exactly, right? Like it's actually normal to double wear clothes. Like it happens all the time. We talk about layers here all the time, right? You go into, you go out on Shabbos, it's freezing cold, and you get to shul and you got to start peeling layers off, right? It's but this is, I think, the important thing. You can even do it bein l'sorach chavero, right? So in other words, right?
So you can carry another garment, but you have to wear it.
Exactly, but if it's not doing anything for you, why can you wear it in a way that's like
maybe I'm bringing my coat over to you, like.
But why is that?
Because wearing is permissible. It's still clothing. I'm still wearing it, even if I wouldn't have worn it without some ulterior motive. I'm still wearing it.
Great, because and to put it in like the way we talked about, walking for health. What can people say about it?
Okay, yeah, it will appear that you're just wearing it to
Exactly.
wear it. So what if it looked funny and it didn't appear that way? Would it be a problem?
Great question. I don't know. Like that's a really interesting question that maybe that's the belt thing that we're going to see in the Ramah, actually, right? In a second, is that there are cases where double layering things looks weird, right? It doesn't look like you're wearing it anymore. It looks like you're trying to get something to your friend, and I do wonder about this. Kids are always exceptions anyway for things, but I know people who've like lived outside the Eruv who will double diaper their kid. Now, sometimes you do double diaper a kid. If anyone's had young children, they like destroy through diapers, right? It happens, but but they do that in a way so the kid can bring the diaper to shul essentially, so they can have a second one when they need to change the child. And I don't know, is that it may follow here in the Shulchan Aruch, or it might be weird, and the Ramah might say no. We'll see the Ramah in a second on that.
Or if it's something that you do otherwise because they're going to destroy through it, then you can say to yourself,
Exactly. So these are the decisions, we're always making. And granted, and I think the thing behind all of this is, while this is in some ways interesting, very few of us probably live in Reshut Harabim, and those who do probably often live in Jewish cities that have an Eruv, right? Not everywhere in New York has an Eruv, and it's a dispute about what is Reshut Harabim and so forth. But like, it is worth noting that we're actually probably usually dealing with Carmelite issues, not with Reshut Harabim necessarily. So and a lot more cities have Eruvin these days than ever did when I was, ever did in my lifetime. We're at a peak Eruv, kind of thing. As more and more infrastructure goes underground, that might be a problem. But okay, let's look at the Ramah though, because I think he's really interesting here. Ruben, keep going.
Okay. Okay, Haga. ויש אוסרים שתי חגורות זה על זה, אלא אם כן מבוש מצדיק ביניהם. And that's the Orzaruah v'Tosfot Mordechai Perak B'Meisha. V'chen ra'oi linhog. U'mutar lilbosh shnei kov'im ze al ze, which is a very fun image, just by the way. V'chen shnei anpilot. Okay, so there are those who forbid two belts, one on top of the other, unless there is a cloth between them.
Yeah.
And he says it's fitting to behave this way. This is a good custom to put a piece of cloth in between each belt. It's good to do this. And it's permitted to wear two hats, one on top of the other. And I think this last thing is leggings. Is that correct?
I believe it's some sort of leg warming thing that's like a
leg warming
for your legs. Yeah. So I'm not exactly, I didn't look in Jastro. I just, or anything like that. So maybe somebody has a good English term, but it's like a leg warmer, or something like that. So, good. Yeah. So, all right, let's look at, so the Ramah has this thing about the belts. He's not, he says, some people say, no, you can't do it unless there's actually, it's just there's a piece of clothing in between them. What I wanted to look at here, I think it was Kuf Lamed Gimel. Yesh Osrim Shtei Chagurot. This is going to be a big lift for somebody, but Ori, can I ask you to read that in the? This is Kuf Lamed Gimel in the Ramah, another Ramah, the Mishnah Berurah, the Sif Katan.
Yes.
Joel, where are we?
Sorry, we're in Siman Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. It's Sif Katan Kuf Lamed Gimel. We're discussing Sif Lamed Vav in the Shulchan Aruch.
Okay. ויש אוסרים שתי חגורות, ולא דמה לשני מלבושים, שדרך אדם לבוש אותם מפני הקור. This is not similar to wearing two clothes, which people would normally do for cold. אבל תרי חגורות, מה הנאה יש? Two belts, what positive benefit is there? ואין דרך לחגור ומסוי הוא, and there's no way to belt that way.
I think this is not
that's not the way that people use belts. Yeah. Therefore, it's carrying. I do feel like, I'm sorry to comment while I'm reading. Clearly, there could be a style like this, and then it would be fine, right?
Yeah, then it'd be like a tachshit of some sort. You're saying,
yeah, like I could easily imagine some kind of style where there's like an exterior belt on an internal belt, and one has more, adornment. On the top one being an adornment. But I feel like that's obviously not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who, like, you're putting on an extra belt for the purpose of bringing it to your friend, because he said actually tzar chavero. So we have that in the background.
Exactly. Or you could even imagine somebody who says, maybe like one belt holds up my pants well, but the other one looks nice, and so I'm gonna switch out belts when I get to shul or something like that, right?
And you're saying that might be problematic.
Yeah, right. Because why? And this is like, I think goes back to this principle we've had the whole time of people don't do that, right, as a way of wearing. And so people don't do that in general, then it actually becomes a masui, right? As opposed to even if you're wearing a derech mabush, right? That there's a gezerah against it. So,
but your example of one having the benefit of holding up my pants and the other being for looks.
Not for looks at the moment. I mean, you're going to switch out to one belt, right? That's okay. What I mean. Yeah, that's it.
And he's very clear here. He says, "Trei chagrot mahana ayesh," meaning clearly you're doing it with no benefit of the normal belt type.
Good, but I want to clarify, because I think this is the thing I've been
Yeah.
trying to press here, is it doesn't matter or if it does or does not have hana to you at the moment. It matters in general. Do people get hana from this, right? That's the important thing. In other words, do people look at
Right.
you and say, "Oh yeah, that's what's going on," right? People wear two sweaters because it's cold and you layer. We like to layer, right? As opposed to two belts, people are going to look at that and like, "You're just carrying a belt." That's all he's doing, right? It's as opposed to the local custom matters here. As someone was you pointed out, like if for some reason we came this local custom of wearing two belts, maybe that would be different, or maybe like we had some belt type where the second one helped the first or something, and people regularly did this. So
right, okay. Umashma b'poskim dilchule alma ein isuro ela midirabanan. Kivan she'al kol panim derech levishahu. Okay, umashma b'poskim. So it seems in the poskim that according to everyone there would be no problem here except in derabanan. It's a derabanan isur. Kivan she'al kol panim derech levishahu, because it's still wearing technically. Aval de asur mishum de michse kamasoi, but it's asur because it looks like you're carrying.
yeah. So I think just in terms of time, I want to stop here at this point, right? This is the main point I wanted to get of this. But there's some interesting, things of like other stuff you wouldn't normally wear as a belt and so forth. But I think this is a good demonstration for Kuf Lamed Gimel. So, okay, I want to move on to Lamed Zayin. This is another, as I said, I bias this to Michigan, where I live. So Lamed Zayin is very important where I live. Even though I do live in an Eruv, but sometimes you have to go outside the Chabad's outside the Eruv. So
Joel, just to clarify, so Kuf Lamed Gimel, it's just that what matters is that
I didn't hear what you said to begin with. What?
So yeah, just to clarify, from Kuf Lamed Gimel, what you're saying is important to highlight is that what matters is that people think that there's Hana'ah involved in what you're wearing.
Yeah, or that people would wear it that way for Hana, even if you're wearing it not for Hana. Like I'm wearing, let's pretend you're at shul and you forgot your jacket, and I got word that you forgot your jacket, and so I'm going to put an extra jacket on to bring it to you. That's okay, because sometimes people wear a jacket on top of their clothes, right? But if it's something that people don't normally wear that way, then it's not permissible. So even though it's derech malbush, it's an isur derabanan. Yeah. And that's what's going to be, that's what's going to get us into all these cases of, well, what if it's a place where there's no gezerah, like it's bimkom tsar, right? Or you're trying to save, something from a fire, stuff like that. That's when we'll start to get exceptions, because there won't be a gezerah derabanan there. So, so you have not violated their right to rule of carrying if you go out with two belts, right? But it's asur derabanan. So, okay.
Unless people wear two belts.
Yeah, good. And this is the important thing to say with all of this. The Shulchan Aruch here, and I think this is the reason, right? The principles are very, I think, pretty clear for this Siman. But you have to play out all the examples based on your world over and over, right? And your world, as the clothing styles it changed through time, and they have, right? Of course, we'll see some stuff about hats in a little bit. And so forth. You have to re-litigate all of this stuff all the time, right? It's going to be important to, it's a living Torah at the end of the day, and so depending on where you live and how people do things is gonna determine the following rules. So, for instance, and questions beyond my ability here of like what counts as your geographic area and so forth, and so on, but. But anyway, Alan, since you're off, or you were off mute, read Lamed Zayin for us.
Okay. Kuf Lamed Zayin. Right? Oh no, then Biur Halacha.
No. So Shulchan Aruch Seif Lamed Zayin. Sorry.
Okay. There's a lot of Lamed Zayins on this page.
Yes, there are. I know it gets confusing. So.
Okay. מותר לצאת בשבת בבתי ידיים הנקראים, I'm not even gonna try. Guantish.
Yeah.
They're gloves.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
In
This is
Spanish, guantes or gloves.
Oh, look at that. I didn't know that. That's amazing. So
yeah. But in modern Spanish, yeah. ויש מי שמחמיר להצריך שיתפרם מערב שבת בבתי ידיים של מלבושיו או שיקשירם בהם בקשר של קיימא יפה, וראוי לחש לדבריו. So it's permissible to go out wearing gloves on Shabbat. But there are some people who are machmir and require that you like sew them on to your malbush, or that you tie them with a kesher shel kaima, like a good knot.
Exactly. Lasting. So
yeah, a good knot, and it's raui. People should worry about this. Like it's something that people should be careful about.
exactly. Lechatchila, per the Shulchan Mechaber here, right? You should sew your gloves or attach your gloves onto your sleeves, before Shabbos, so that you can wear gloves on Shabbos, and then you can go out and put them on. And, I have to say, like, just, my personal experience with this, obviously, I go out in places where you have to wear gloves. I mean, your hands are going to get very cold, at least for me. And, kids definitely drop their gloves like crazy all over the place. Kids are their own, it's not something that easily falls off of you. And there are times you will, like, without thinking about it, like, try to take your glove off or something, right? Because you have to, like, if you want to adjust something, sometimes you don't have really good sensory feelings in gloves, right? So I can imagine there's a lot of concerns going on here of having your gloves fall off, taking them off and walking with them and so forth. And I've seen it actually. So I understand it, but let's take a look. Actually, I didn't put this on my list, but I think it's actually important. Look at Kuf Mem Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah, because
So can I just clarify?
yeah.
One question I had during the preparation, if you dropped the glove, picking up the glove would not necessarily be the problem, right? The chashash is that you'll carry it for amot in Reshut Harabim. You can pick up the glove.
Well, no.
No?
Yeah, this is the whole thing, because Rav Nachum can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the whole idea to violate Deraita, you have to do akira, and right, you have to pick it up and you have to put it down, right, and hanacha. And so what you've now done is you pick something up in Reshut Harabim. If you now go into Reshut HaYachid and you stop, you've now picked it up in Reshut HaRabim and you put it down in Reshut HaYachid. So you've actually violated carrying at that point if you drop it on Shabbos.
But if you put it back on your hand for Malbush, it doesn't stop that process of...
I don't think so, right? This is the whole thing. I can't, like, take something off in Reshut HaRabim on Shabbos and then pick it back up and put it back on, right? That's I don't know, Rav Nachum, do you just, am I going crazy?
Put it back on as Malbush.
Yeah.
If I pick up a shirt from Reshut Rabim and put it on, you're saying that's basically already...
Yeah.
Rav Nachum, you're muted.
You're muted, Rav Nachum.
I mean, if you pick up a shirt, and isn't that akira?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not hanacha.
But if you then stop in Reshut HaYachid, right?
I think if you're no longer considered to be carrying it, like if by the time you stop in the Reshut HaYachid, you're not, it's like being worn and not being meaningfully set or carried. I think it is possible that would not, at least that you wouldn't be chayav.
It would just be a sword.
I also think so. I think like that once you're wearing it, I mean, again, I don't want you to get a chatat because of me.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're wearing it, it's no longer called, like, even if you sit down in the Reshut HaYachid now, you didn't
you weren't maniach
you weren't doing hanacha in that case.
You weren't doing hanacha because it's like you're wearing it. I mean, like, what if you ate it? What if you pick up a cheese doodle on the park bench and then you eat it?
Yeah. So
I don't think there's a hanacha now when you sit down. It's gone.
So
in a similar way, maybe by wearing it, it's gone.
You think it's out of the bounds of being carried at that point?
Although you want to say like this, eventually you take it off.
Well, that's the thing.
You take a nap.
Yeah.
I take off the glove. I'll take the glove example. I'm going to take it off when I get home. That's the hanacha then?
Yeah.
That would be hanacha.
Yeah. So that
there wouldn't be, no, I think this is what we're going to say. There wouldn't have been carrying. In other words, there would have been akira and hanacha, but would there have been carrying?
But there's hotzah, so it kind of doesn't matter, right? At that
Right.
point.
So there's hotzah. There wouldn't have been carrying. Now there's an isser of carrying something for amos in Rosh Hashanah, and there's also a separate isser of doing a kiran hanacha.
Yeah.
And if you don't, even if you didn't carry it, but you did akira, and then eventually you got home and took your gloves off and you put them on the radiator. So now you did a hanacha.
Yeah, but let's not talk about putting on the radiator yet, because that itself might be a problem. Yeah,
the radiator that's off.
Yeah, exactly. So that's but yeah, no, it's a great question, because I've thought about this. I've had, like, we're gonna see this, Mike, my hat blow off, right? We'll see this in the Shulchan Aruch, and I don't know if I ever had it done, like, when not in an eruv. Maybe I have. I have to think back. And that could be a problem of picking it up potentially, and especially if I'm taking it off. But maybe there's a little bit debate if I'm gonna wear it for the rest of Shabbos, maybe it's okay, kind of thing. So
right, essentially, it's like, okay, yeah, if you keep then those gloves on, because I think that I agree that, like, when you take them off and set them down, that would theoretically be Hanukkah. So, like, your best option is theoretically, but again, I think it would still be Hatorah Val Asur to pick them up and bring them in.
Yeah.
Just that you wouldn't be Chayav Chatat, I think, if you didn't take them off.
All right, I like that.
Right,
Yeah,
like I'm looking at Seif Mem Aleph, which is the hat falling off.
Yeah.
And it seems there, right? Mishum dechashinan shegbienu haruach merosho v'ati la'atuye dalad amot birshut harabim. So maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it seemed to me like the problem there was it falls off, you go get it, and then before putting it back on your head, you walk dalad amot.
Yeah, I think I was using that as because I kept wondering about the Shulchan Aruch in these cases, right? It's like, well, what if you don't carry it? Like, is it really, like, the truth is I'm gonna put the hat back on. So I really did get the sense of they're as much concerned with you're gonna get to do hotzah at some point, but and that's just kind of code word for it. But maybe I'm wrong about this. I Tzaricha iyun on my part to look into this question a little bit more. It's a very good question. And like, you have to ask, like, if this did happen to me once. I was at an eruv. My keep, I don't have a lot of hair on the top of my head, if you haven't noticed. My kippah blew. I wasn't wearing a hat. My kippah blew off in a Carmelit, and I was like, I don't know. I'm not going to probably take it off for the rest of the day, but can I pick it up and put it back on? And there's also like definitely a kvod briot kind of thing, which we're not going to see it. The whole thing with tzitzit in the Mishnah Berurah of, like, if you're in Derabanan in the Carmelit and you're wearing unkosher tzitzit, this is based on a sugya and brachot Yud Zayin, I think it is, where if it's a Derabanan, you can violate it for kvod briot, right? So he says, yeah, you can wear the unkosher tzitzit, and he says, including if you, like, feel embarrassed, you're not wearing tzitzit, right? You're not wearing tali katan, not just because you're embarrassed to take it off in public. I think this is Siman Yud Gimel in the Mishnah Berurah, and then in the Shulchan Aruch. Sorry, it's Siman Yud Gimel. It's like, I don't remember what Sif Katan it is. So I don't know this by heart. I looked this up earlier. That's why I happened to.
But
Yeah.
Joel, a lot of this is dependent on what you define as Reshut Harabim, right? Because most of the time, anyway, you're in a Carmelit.
Yes. Yeah.
So D'oraita, you're not really going to be chayav for picking up your mitten that fell on the floor.
Good. You're violating D'Rabbanan on this. So we usually do, we take seriously carrying a Carmelit. It's just that in certain cases, if there's extenuating circumstances, we can start to be more lenient, right? That's of course
right. But even with D'Rabbanan, even when you layer D'Rabbanan, like, it's still generally not considered l'chachila okay unless there are good enough extenuating circumstances, right? Like, even a D'Rabbanan way of carrying and a D'Rabbanan reshut, like Carmelit, you still, like, would not l'chachila be told that you can do that unless you have a good enough reason that it must happen.
Yeah.
Right. But if your kippah blew off, isn't that a good enough reason to just
Well, that's the thing. That might be, especially if you're embarrassed to walk around without your head covered, right? That's that might be a good enough reason. So,
but also, like, unless you're a Ovadia Yosef, like, most people still don't hold that having kippah on at all times is in fact a chiyuv, it's a minhag, right? Like, if there's chiyuv during davening and during learning, but, like, according to most poskim, walking the rest of the way home without a kippah, you might be embarrassed about it, but, like, you wouldn't be like failing to fill a mitzvah.
Yeah, but the Mishnah Berurah seems clear about talit katan. He's like, you're not chayav to wear talit katan, right? But that if you're embarrassed that people would see you're not wearing one, then that might be enough. So I don't know. It's an interesting question.
But then, would you discard a religious object on the street? Like, just like let it?
Oh, good. That's going to come into like the Torah and the Tefillin case, right?
Yeah.
That we're not going to do. Yeah, but a kippah, who cares?
But a kippah is a bit different, right? That like kippah and tzitzit, like there's sort of a bit of a spectrum here between kippah, tzitzit, and then tefillin and Torah, where like the latter ones are themselves like sacred objects, right? Like the objects themselves have a sanctity. Whereas a kippah is just a cloth square that like you have imbued with some measure of associative sanctity by the fact that you use it to like fulfill a minhag/mitzvah. But like there is nothing that is inherently sacred about this like bit of cloth. And similarly, like with tzitzis, it's sort of a bit in between. But like unlike with tefillin, for example, which you have to like bury, like put in a gniza, like tzitzis, because you were using it to fulfill a mitzvah, you're told like you should wrap it up maybe before throwing it away, but you don't need to bury it. You just need to wrap it up because it's not actually a sacred object. It's an object that you're using to fulfill a mitzvah.
Yeah, it is a weird, right? You wear talit katan into the bathroom, right? It's not a problem. And versus, well, you could even wear tefillin into a some bathrooms, but not but that's its own category. But these are good questions, Alan. And like some of these, unfortunately, I think it's like good to be prepared because sometimes you have to make last minute decisions. You don't have a Mishnah Berurah in front of you as you're walking in the Rishut Rabim to make these decisions always. So and this stuff happens, and this is why some of these rules are like don't go out with this stuff because we want to prevent it from happening, right? We don't want you to have to make that decision. So Ori, I saw you had a question, and.
I mean, I don't want to extend this discussion longer than it needs to be, but I have more questions. The hat thing, if the hat falls, you come up to the front door, would it be better for me to take, the hat fell, picked it up, put it back on, I leave it outside my front door. So you're not going to get me on Hotzah. Now I have a hanacha, but it was all in the Reshut HaRabim, but in the middle, I was wearing it, so I didn't really have the middle part.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Is it better to do that or to come inside with it?
It's probably better that. I don't know. I don't want to answer that standing on one foot actually. But it's a great question of like how do you make those decisions at that point too. It's look, at the end of the day, as Rav Lexi said and Rav Malcolm said, you're probably violating D'Rabbanan either way, right? So it's all right. Like then maybe it's not a difference in choice. You just wear the hat. It's a lot of, by the way, side note, and this is an interesting sugya in the first paragraph of Shabbat of like, because sometimes you get into these cases where you could violate a D'Rabbanan to avoid violating a D'Oraita. And it's a big discussion about if you're allowed to do that or not. It seems not actually the way the Gemara plays out. But okay, I wanted to move on. These are good questions. This is like part of what we're here for. So, where were we? We were in. I moved because Max pointed out.
We were at the gloves, and then we went to the hat.
Yes, we were the gloves, we did the hat. Okay, good. Let's go back then. So the gloves are important. There's a little bit more in the Mishnah Berurah about these things where these like gloves where you have two. Oh, that's what I wanted to read. Kuf Mem Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. Ruben, can you read that for us? Kuf Mem Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
This is where he says you should be, think about sewing it to your garments, essentially. Like be concerned that maybe you should do that.
Okay.
Who is the Misha Machmir?
The Yesh Misha, I didn't let me take a look. This is how we can find this out. Tell me.
How would we know?
Good. Take a look. You have a little yud by your V'yesh
Yes,
Misha.
I see the yud.
Yes. You have to go up one, but
it's in Shibolei Haleket.
Yeah, the Shibolei Haleket brings both opinions, and then the Agur, it looks like he also brings this.
So it's more than one Misha Machmir.
Yeah. It's always I don't have a good like systematic sense of when does the Shulchan Aruch, Yesh Misha Machmirim, Yesh Misha Omrim, right? Yesh Misha Omer. Why sometimes he's in singular, when sometimes he's not. I'm not quite sure. it'd be interesting. It's a good project to like map that to what he says in the Beit Yosef and see if there's like I do remember like thinking at one point in Yoreh Deah in Isur V'Het, I think it was in I don't remember if it was Basar B'chalav. I don't remember where it was, but I was like, every Yesh Mishu Omer seemed to be the Rashba. It was just because the Rashba has a lot to say in Shemirat Habayit, or was he like deciding that was going to be his Yesh Mishu Omer in that case? I don't know the answer to that. So, okay. Let's Kuf Mem keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
ועכשיו נהגו להקל, ואפשר משום דכיוון שלהרבה פוסקים אין לנו רשות הרבים מדאורייתא בזמן הזה, דנגזור דילמה עתה לעתויה. ומשמע מדברי האחרונים, אף שאין למחות ביד המקילים, מכל מקום ראוי לכל בעל נפש להחמיר.
Good.
Okay. So nowadays, we have the practice of being mekil. And it's possible that this is because, according to most poskim, or many poskim, we don't really have Rishut Rabim on a Deraita level in our time, which was, and Rishut Rabim on a Deraita level is why there was a Gzera less to come to carry it.
Exactly.
In the first place. And then you can infer or learn from the words of the Achronim, there's also no reason to protest.
Yeah, I think the off is important, even though we do not protest.
Even though there's no reason to protest, according to the opinion of those who are makil, nevertheless, it's appropriate for all. What is a Baal Nefesh?
These are like people who really care about their lives, shall we say.
All good people.
Yes, exactly.
All good people, okay. All good people should be Machmir.
I love the tension in this, right? He's like, first off, people are makil about this nowadays, right? He's not making this up. He's quoting from, I think it's like the Magen Avraham or something. You can take a look in the Shiur HaTzion. Probably actually Shiur HaTzion, isn't it? But anyway, he on the other hand, he's like, but if you get a chance to tell people, if someone comes to you and asks, like, tell them sew your gloves to your clothes, kind of thing. So I do like this about the Mishnah Berurah, is that he is very, he's based on other people, but he's very open on one hand to like, well, what is actually happening? Although sometimes he does say we need to tell these people they're wrong and yell at them and and so forth. And at the same time, like, if you want to be from, not just want to be from, you should be from about it, but like, don't get on people's cases if they're not. So, okay. That was Lamed Zayin. What did I want to do next? Let's go to Lamed Chet. Oh yes, this is good. I want to talk about the seats. There's a reason I want to do this. Let's see. Alan, would you like to read for us?
Sure. Hayotze. Hayotze b'Shabbat b'talit she'ina mitzviyetzet. I love that word. Mitzviyetzet kihilchata chayav. Mipnei she'otam achutim chashuvim hem etzlo. ודעתו עליהם עד שישלים ויעשהו ציצית. So I'll stop there.
Good.
You're going out in a talit that is not properly tied, the tzitzit. You're now considered carrying the chutim of the tzitzit.
Exactly.
Because you're thinking about them, that you've got to finish it. You've got to finish them, so maybe that's why it's. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, I guess, what about it is.
Good. If let's say they weren't tzitzit, did you guys, there's a Siman earlier, I don't know if we saw it in class about you can go out, like your clothes have like not bells that like have a thing in it that rings, but
right.
Bells on the bottom, on the shulaim of your clothes, right? Whatever the word for shulaim is, the sides. Yeah.
I think it was the bachurim, right? It was the men who did that.
Yeah. It's fashion changes through time. It's and so right. Why is it you're allowed to go out with those? Why aren't you carrying them?
Because they're attached.
Yeah, they're batalim. They're batalim to the garment, right? This is last time we did this. You have these moments of being shocked about things in halakha, and then you realize, no, we need to calm down. This is actually fine. 5 years ago when we did this, it came up. If anyone, dress shirts will often have like extra buttons in case the buttons pop off
Right.
so to them. And someone, I remember, I think it was Rav Nachum brought up for a minute. He said, wait, why are we allowed to go out with those? Right. That's and then Rav Landis was like, no. We need to find a reason to permit that because everyone does it, right? Like there's no way that can be asur. And then Rav Nachum was like, oh, maybe it's batel to the garment. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. Like it's batel to the garment.
What does that mean? Because it comes up a lot. When they use the word batel, it's low or something like that. What's the meaning of the batel there?
It's I would say it's an accessory that's really just like if you looked at it, you wouldn't say that's a
It's
string.
insignificant.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's the garment is the thing. The garment has strings. Like, what's the big deal? But here those strings, they're chashuvim because you don't mean them to be batel the garment. You mean to fix them at some point and make them tzitzit.
You're wearing the garment for the tzitzit, really.
Exactly. Yeah, potentially. Well, no, I mean, if you wear a four-corner garment, you have to put tzitzit on it, right? At the end of the day, it's a chiyuv to.
Right, but people wear a four-cornered garment to be able to wear the tzitzit.
Also true. Yes, I don't know if that's the reality that's playing out here or not, but it's a great point, right?
But nowadays the garment is batel to the tzitzit.
Tzitzit. It's so true. I mean, I only wear a four-corner garment so I can wear tzitzit. I don't wear a four-corner garment because I really like four-corner garments.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, good. Do a little bit more.
ואם היא מצויצת כהלכתה, אף על פי שאין בה תכלת, מותר לצאת בה בשבת. Okay, it's self-explanatory. Even if you don't have tchelet on it, but they're tied like they should be tied, it's fine to go out on Shabbat and it's not considered like you're carrying the tzitzit.
Great. This is the Mishnah in Menachot, right? I believe in Hakometz Rabbah, right? That the techelet is not me'akev, right? So you are this. By the way, I think this. I just wanted to bring this. This is interesting. I believe there's a brisker custom to not wear a talit katana on Shabbat, because
Not wear what?
There's a brisker custom to not wear a talit katana on Shabbat. And I've heard two different versions of it. I don't know if maybe someone can tell me it's correct, but both comes from this. One is some people say, well, maybe when we say that the chelet isn't me'akev, maybe that's not really true in terms of Shabbat, and we want to be machmir about it. But the other is because if your tzitzit should break, they're a little concerned about your walking around with a garment she'eino mitzuyetzet.
Like if one of the chutim breaks, but not all of them?
It'd have to be two, but yeah, it's so.
Like if it's still on the garment, if it's still on the talit, but it's not completely tied.
Exactly. Yeah. So we will, God willing, when we see Kuf Yud Chet in rules of kosher, there is, I think it's a Magen Avraham who he talks about how a way to tie tzitzit on Shabbat without violating kosher.
Wait, but Joel, that would according to this, it wouldn't be a problem if it broke, because it's only a problem before it's tied. But after it's tied, there's no way to fix tzitzit that have broken. You just have to cut them off.
No, you can untie them potentially and retie them in a way that they be kosher. That's quite possible. So,
point is that the tzitzit is pasul at this point.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it doesn't count as a beged.
But why wouldn't it be like the bells?
Because
the bells you intend to have that way, right?
Yeah.
That like with the tzitzit that becomes puzzle, it would be like that toalav, right? Your mind would be on it because you need to either replace that tzitzit or you wouldn't wear this potentially, right? You need to replace it or fix it.
It's not a beged.
The bells fell off.
The bells fell. You can't pick it up. It's just done.
No, wait.
Now is your garment. Now is the rest of your garment with like two less bells.
The bells aren't necessary for the garment, right? There's no necessity of the bells. There is necessity for the tzitzit. That's the difference. So,
I think we didn't explain it in the simplest manner, which is we're still talking about what's a valid beged that people wear, yes. And tzitzit are not a beged that people wear unless they're kosher. Otherwise, it sort of falls out of fashion immediately, right? Like you're not wearing a normal thing. If no one else would wear such a thing with such strings. So you automatically are wearing something that's carrying because it's not in its true form of begedness. Is that right?
I don't think it's that the talit katan and the tzitzit, because again, as Rav Joel pointed out, you might not be wearing a talit katan, you might be wearing like clothing that's four cornered, and B, like if you're wearing something over your body, as we've seen, like that the beged itself, you're certainly wearing, but the idea is basically like, if you meant to have this be mitzuyetzet, it needs to be mitzuyetzet, and the strings aren't tied correctly. There's this idea of like, your mind is on those tzitzis as like they are not batel vis-a-vis the garment, because you're thinking about those strings and how like they are not meant to exist in the way that they are, right? And so whereas with the bells, for example, which are decorative, if one bell falls off, that doesn't change anything about the rest of the bells. There's still decorations on that are just part of your shirt. Whereas like if your tzitzis become puzzle, then like you just have strings that are hanging on your garment that otherwise would not be there and that you're thinking you need to fix.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to read in the Mishnah Berurah Kuf Mem Gimel. If people look at Sif Katan Kuf Mem Gimel, because this will answer that question, just like Rez Rav Lexi said. He says, Chayav lo bishvil hatalit. You're not carrying the talit. Dafal gav do eno mekayem atzeh de tzitzit. Mikom makom eno chayav bishvil zem machmat Shabbat. The hal mabushe who, right? That even though you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit, right? Nonetheless, that's not what you're not obligated for the talit, because you're actually still wearing it. Ela bishvil hotzata chutim. What are you doing? You're now carrying the strings, because these strings are important to you. They're not batel to the garment, because you want them. You want to make tzitzit, right? You want them to be correct. And so you're taking them home now, and so you're carrying the strings for amot in Rishut Harabim, and that's the problem, is the strings and not the garment itself. So good. Rav Nachum, you came off mute, so maybe you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. There's a Gemara in Eruvin that says that if you find tefillin on the street, you can put them on and take them home.
Yes.
And then take them off. So you see from that it's not called akira v'hanacha if you're interimly wearing it.
Yeah. So
you could, if your hat blows off, you can put it on. You can walk over, put it on your head, and go about normally.
Yeah.
You don't have a problem, because once it becomes lavush, it goes out of the category of akira v'hanacha.
Yeah.
It resets.
So.
Yeah.
What's with the gloves tying then? Then you can bring that as a kasha back on the gloves.
Yeah, that you.
No, because
the gloves weren't that bad.
What did we say about gloves?
Yeah, no, I think it's still asur derabanan, and we waive it for the tzitzit, right? Because not tzitzit, for the tefillin. Right?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask from Nachum. Is that competing values to save the tefillin? Because that, Joel, brings us back to what you were mentioning earlier, which is, can I break a derabanan for some, not break a daraita, or for some other important value?
Well, I think we say there's no gezerah, right? In a case, the rabbis.
Are you saying that that the hat would still be asur derabanan?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're still, in other words, malbush is maybe not considered akira v'hanacha, but it is maybe in terms of there's an isur derabanan of picking something up in Rishut Harabim, putting it on, and then wearing it to Rishut Yachid.
Yeah, that specific thing is what you're saying, and that's what the Gemara in Eruvin is actually saying, because it's only because it's tefillin.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but
so it takes off the gezerah. So it's a gezerah about picking up something in Rishut Harabim.
Does anybody remember what Siman that is in the Siman? Because it's in there. I'm curious if he says something about that. It's Membet. Right. Everyone look at Membet. We'll go there. This is good stuff. This is a Sif Membet in the Shulchan Aruch. Hamotzet tefillin b'Shabbat bevizayon b'makom she'en mishtamrim. Im yesh sakana shegazru shelo. I'm gonna skip that. That's the case where you're not allowed to wear tefillin. Ve'im ein sakana. I'll keep going. Right. There's a place where there's no gezerah against wearing tefillin. Im yesh bahem ritzuot shebekach nikar shem tefillin velo kmiot ve'hem kshurot she'achol lelofshan. Machnisan zug derech levisha ad sheyachnisem kulam. Right. So they're right. You can, as long as you're allowed to wear them, and they're capable of being worn, you can wear them in to fix them. And does the Mishnah Berurah say anything about this? Let's see. Kuf nun vav. What does he say? No. Yeah, I don't see him say it specifically that you need to because it's tefillin, like there's no gezerah. So all right, so that, we keep it as a question, although it's possible that maybe it's still asur derabanan, but definitely we see with the tefillin a case where it's definitely not an isur deraita, to it, because even if it was tefillin, we wouldn't say you're allowed to violate the Easter Doraita on Shabbos to save the tefillin, right? We to wear the tefillin to save them, right? So it must not be an Easter Doraita. So, okay. Good. That's the one. If there's a gezerah, that's where they say what you should do instead is, right. You should you wear a coat out. Is also for a Sefer Torah, right? You wear a coat out into the Reshut HaRabim, and then you put it on the tefillin of the Sefer Torah to kind of protect them. Or you can sit there with them for the rest of the night. It's also a possibility, right? Until Shabbos is over. So, okay. Where was I? Mem.
With the tefillin, it's only if there's too many.
Yes. You don't have time to do it. Yeah. With the Torah though, you can't carry the Torah. So
you can't wear the Torah. Or
can't wear the Torah, exactly. Yes. But although we have some interesting stories in our history where people have done so in order to save Sifrei Torah, but not on Shabbos necessarily. So,
I mean, the Mishnah Berurah says in Kuf Nun Chet, he just says, the lav bichlal masui. It's not a burden. Ela takshit.
Oh, okay. So
it just says it's not in the category of carry. I mean, I don't think there's any. I don't see any Rabbanan here.
Except wait, is the Yesh Me'achrim Chokim alav the sphere lahud? Wait, what am I reading here? The Kevan de Medina de Gemara in alhem Isur Bazer Rak de Lachila in Nachon Lahanicham Lo Nikre Masoy Legaba.
No, he's talking about there's no Isser to wear the
tefillin. It's not good to put tefillin on Shabbos. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So
I don't know if there's really any. I didn't see any Isser Rabbanan.
Okay. So maybe the answer is you could pick the hat up and put it back on, and it's just.
And he's just bringing this example because this is an example that was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it had. You know, it was a Gemara brings this example, and not because this is an exception.
Yeah. So.
Whatever. It's a good question.
It's a great question. Yeah, I like it, and
it's heightening.
I just want you to be able to pick
up
your hat. I mean, it seems. I mean, it seems weird that Judaism would forbid you to pick up your hat that blew off. And we still might make a gezerah that you shouldn't wear gloves because maybe you'll take them off and walk 4 amos with them, not wearing them.
Yeah, I think it might be. We're talking more of a case like either what I was saying. You take your gloves off because you got to fix something, right? Because it's hard to do stuff with your hands, right? Like your coat is off and you got to fix it or something.
And theoretically, we could have made a gezerah that you might take your hat off and carry it. You might take your hat off and walk with it. So we're not going to let you. I mean, people say that about sunglasses, right? Sunglasses you're not supposed to wear outside of a neighbor because people, unless they're prescription, because you do take them off and not wear them.
That's the
and put them in your pocket.
I put them in your pocket.
You answered my question about the gloves because I think that makes a lot more sense. It's very normal for me to take my glove. I could put it in my pocket, forget that I did that, and walk. It's not necessarily the falling down and picking up they're worried about. It could because it's a small thing. It's easy to carry it.
Yeah,
exactly. We're worried about you carrying it for hours.
I guess we have to say the same thing about the shoe that you lose in the mud in the water, right? The shoe, the sandal. Yeah.
We're worried that you're going to walk. Once it fell off, you say, "Forget these shoes. I'm just going to carry them."
Yeah. So, all right, good.
Sandals.
This is very helpful. Let's go to. Do I want to do mem? Let's do mem. In the Shulchan Aruch. Let's see. I think you're up for reading. Is that right?
Yeah. Mem. Kova shehu mitpashet lahalan merosho tefach. Asur lahanicho verosho afilu babayit mishum ohel. So a hat that you take off.
Oh no, this is mitpashet extends. I think here it's like extends.
Mitpashet lahalan merosho, farther than a tefach from your head. You can't put that on your head, even in your house, because that's just an ohel. So not even really a hotzah issue, just an ohel issue.
Exactly. Now we're going to get a little bit of pushback.
I feel like I've seen Chabadnikim go out with
Oh, good. But we're going to look at the Mishnah.
What's your tefach?
Yeah, this is going to be helpful. You actually know, right? This is like, if you look at, I just Ori, start reading Mem Aleph for us too. Let's do both together.
Let's sit b'Shabbat b'chova sheberosho העשוי להגן מפני החמה. Okay, this is what I was gonna guess. יש מי שאוסר משום דחיישינן שיגביהנו הרוח מראשו. באצילה תויי דלת אמות ברשות הרבים. אלא אם כן הוא מהודק בראשו, או שהוא עמוק, שראשו נכנס לתוכו. Okay, so if you have a sun hat, there are those who prohibit it because we think that's the kind of hat that's going to blow off, right? So I'm assuming it's a light hat with a long, potentially
It
a
could be a
long
baseball
brim.
cap.
Yeah, could be.
Well, baseball hat is about to say if it's a moke, then that could be allowed.
Yeah,
It's
Right,
not
so
necessarily
all the
baseball.
qualify, yeah. Right, so you're likely to carry it if it's going to blow from the wind, unless it's mihudak, which could be just really tight or attached. Osha hu amok, if it's deep enough, then obviously it's also sort of a little more attached. Your head's going all the way in, the wind couldn't blow it off. Oshu kashur b'rutsu'at tachat grono, and you have sun hats that actually attach under your chin or your throat.
Yeah.
And in those cases, you wouldn't be worried about it blowing off.
Exactly. So, all right. So we have two cases. One, the hat can't have too big a brim. We're going to see some Mishnah Berurah on this, though, where he's going to make limitations on this. But also you can wear a sun hat on Shabbos just as long as it is well fitted to hold on your head or is attached. Right? Those are the two principles. So let's take a look back at Kufman Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll do some Kufman Bet as well. Maybe Ruben, you want to read Kufman Aleph, Steve Katan's Kufman Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah?
Certainly. Okay. ודווקא כשהיה השפה שהוציאה קשה ביותר, ואינו נכפף, אז חשוב כמו אוהל. ואילאו הכי הרי הוא כגלימה בעלמא. So this is specifically if the sort of the brim is hard, like it has a hard brim.
Yeah.
The brim that goes out. It's very hard and it's not curved.
Yeah.
Or it means
floppy.
It doesn't bend easily.
Oh,
Yeah,
floppy. It doesn't bend easily. Okay. And it doesn't bend easily. Then it's considered an ohel. And if that's not the case, if you don't have this kind of brim, then it's just like a glima, it's just like an outer garment.
Yeah. So.
ובסעיף שאחר זה, דמצהיר כשהוא מהודק על ראשו, מייריק שאינו קשה ונכפף, או דמייריק שאין בו רוכב טפח בהסבה. Okay, so, and in the seif to follow, which we just read, that permits wearing a big hat as protection against the sun if it's tight around the head. This is if it is not kashev nikpaf, if the brim is not hard and you said nikpaf is like floppy.
I would say floppy.
Floppy
is the right English word.
If it isn't floppy, as long as it isn't floppy.
It is floppy. No, as long as it is
not
floppy.
Hard and floppy. Positive on
Positive on nikpaf. Okay, great. Right. Or if it does not extend, the width does not extend, the width of the brim does not extend a tefach long.
Right. So, by the way, look down. Just before we do the next one, in Kuf Pei Dalet in the Shard Sion. Ruben, keep going on the Shard. Go look at the Shard.
Sorry,
Sion.
could you? Where am I looking again? Which one in the Shard Sion?
Shard Sion, Kuf Pei Dalet.
Kuf Pei Dalet. Yes. Okay. Kuf Pei Dalet. Afroni. והתז תירץ עוד דמיירי שלבשו בערב שבת, דלא עשה אוהל בשבת. Okay, so the Taz sort of solves this issue and says that this, or he provides a teretz, and he says that this also applies to a case where you put this on Erev Shabbat before Shabbat actually begins, so that you're not making an ohel on Shabbat. So you can put your hat on before Shabbos comes in.
Your big hat, put it on before Shabbos, right? And it's like you make an ohel on Shabbos. It was an ohel. All right. So
I just want to point out one thing. I was thinking about a case of this, a baseball cap. Nowadays, they make baseball caps with like even plastic brims.
Oh yeah.
They're very hard. Up to what we've seen, it would be usher to wear a baseball cap if it's more than a tefach on Shabbat.
So the problem we're going to run into in the Mishnah we're going to see the problem in the Mishnah Berurah is that everyone does it. And this is going to be a problem for us, right? This is, and he's not talking about Lav Dafka baseball caps, but he's like, people, the next Seif Katan is going to deal with, but people are doing this. So what do we do? So.
But how hard is hard? Because those baseball caps, they're nichfaf. They're not nichfaf by themselves, but people do bend them regularly, like it's part of the
My
hat.
sense is that it means nichfaf as like, you know, the flappy beach sun hats that.
Yeah.
Well, even a Borsalino, which is a felt hat, it moves freely.
Yeah.
Some of the baseball caps are pretty hard. Do you think
they are?
I think baseball caps would fit in the category of hard.
Yeah, I think so too. That's my instinct here.
Because when I was a kid, you still bent them as the style. Now the style is flat.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, when I was a kid, you only bent them in a curve.
But they don't flap in the wind. And we'll see. The Mishnah Berurah will actually he'll say more about the soft ones and why, and it might help us. But let's look at Kuf Nun Bet. This will take us. Maybe Ori, start reading for us a little bit, and this might be the last one we see, but this is like an important piece here. So.
Mishum Ohel.
Yeah.
Af shehen Ohel belod fanot. Mikol makom chashiv Ohel arai. The asur midirbanam. So even though it's an Ohel without sides or is that like an entranceway, a dolphin?
No, walls. A dolphin's
just a wall. Okay.
Side is right. Like an Ohel, a true Ohel needs to have a top and sides. And when we get to Ohel and Bona, we'll see some distinctions between like what did you put first? Did you put the walls first? Or did you put the Ohel first and all that? But for the moment, like it's not an Isur D'Oraita, it's an Isur D'Rabbanan. So okay.
It's anyways considered an Ohel Arai, like a temporary Ohel. So I had a question about this that he's answering now. Because that edge of the hat is there to protect you from the sun. Even though it does go out more than a tefach, we are usually mekil, lenient. כתבו האחרונים כמה צדדים בטעם היתרם. The Achronim wrote about how many sides.
I think side means approaches, right? There are several approaches as to why are they allowing this?
Why they should be allowed.
Yeah.
One, כיוון זה אינו קשה ונכפף למטה, אין בו חשש איסור. Okay, first of all, because if it's not hard and it bends down, there's no worry about it being asur. V'hainu kishe'en munach bo niyar kashe. Because there's no hard paper put inside of it.
Yeah, I think he means like a baseball cap, not like a baseball cap that has cardboard right in the brim, right?
Yeah, an internal frame or structure. ואפילו אם הוא קשה, and even if it's hard, אינו מתכוון בלי בשעתו להיות לצל. This was my question. רק מכיוון לכסות ראשו. I think because Rav Nachman put me in the mindset of always to ask, is the clothing a stylistic thing or a utilitarian thing? Ohel certainly sounds utilitarian and not stylistic. And he's saying that those specific britlech, they were makil maybe, even if it was hard, because you're not putting it on really for the sun.
Exactly.
You're actually they weren't putting it on specifically for the shade. They just want to cover their head. If the brim was made out of a layer.
No, Shipua is like an angle. It's like angled down, right? It's at a
angled down.
Yeah, it's a diagonal essentially. So.
גם כן יש לצדד דלא מקרי אוהל באופן זה. There also you have the side of, the viewpoint that it's not considered a tent in that way.
Exactly. Even though we think of tents as being angled down, the halachic tent is an overhead, right? Covering, and this is like it's coming down, so it's different. So, okay.
Keep going.
Keep going a little bit. This is a really, I think, good stuff here. So.
ואליה רבא כתב דתם העולם הוא. משום דסומכים עצמם על שיטת רש"י וסייעתו דסבירה להו שאין בכובע איסור אוהל כלל, עיין שם. So, I don't know what the Eliyahu Rabbah is.
Eliyahu Rabbah he's a important acharon that gets quoted a lot in the Mishnah Berurah. He's post the people on the page of the Shulchan Aruch in general. So yeah.
So he wrote.
By the way, look quickly at Kuf in Sharatzi and Kuf Pei Zayin.
Yes, good. All right, Rav Nachum, read it for us, please.
He says they go like Rashi, who permits it, but he doesn't say what that is. So in Kuf Pei Zayin, he says, "What's the heter? Acharesha hu derech levisha." Because it's levisha.
Yeah.
And nothing that is worn is a tent.
Exactly.
When you wear things, that's not called a tent. And don't give me troubles about tents on bodies. Tents are things that you set up on the ground. You carry them maybe in your hand, but you don't wear them on your body.
Exactly.
Like an umbrella, you carry it in your hand. But this, you're wearing it.
Exactly. And actually, at the end of this, we won't get all the way to the end, but at the end, he actually brings up the question of the parasol, and he says, "Don't worry, we're going to deal with that in several simanim," which we will, I think, in class deal with in several simanim. The whole question of umbrellas on Shabbat. But for them, we'll do a little bit more. So they rely on Rashi.
ולפי זה אפילו בקפלוש שהוא קשה, another hard hat, ויהיה ברוחב השפה טפח, and it's טפח out, גם כן אין למחות במקום שנוהגים להקל. We're not going to make trouble in a place where they are generally makil with that. Same thing from Rashi's reasoning. Even though it has that edge for specifically for shade.
Exactly. It's straight. It's for sale. It's got all the problems. Yeah. But we're still not going to say anything.
But we allow it. So.
But in a place where they not make it, in those places you should be machmir, like the Shulchan Aruch's original opinion. Shehi al pi da'at harach ve'arambam ha'aruch.
Yeah. So.
Rabbeinu Tam ve'Rabba Magid.
Yeah, look, but keep going.
Yeah.
שלא ללבוש בשבת קפלוש רחב כזה, וגם בכתפי הארי עושה בקפלוש.
Kapelush is a baseball hat. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a baseball
hat.
A cap. Yeah.
It's a cap.
Yeah. So this is
it's those old ones with the little Jewish looking hats.
I think it's important to this is really interesting psak halacha, right, from the Mishnah Berurah here, and it's not from him actually. He's quoting other people, right? Of what do you do when you you have a group of people who are religious Jews, and they seem to be completely violating the Shulchan Aruch. And so he's one is we figure out, well, maybe there's some other operative thing. We can make an okimta on the Shulchan Aruch. That's part one. And the second thing he has is really fascinating is well, there's another major opinion out there. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin like it, but maybe these people paskin like that. Rashi, right? And so we hold that opinion. It must be that these people are paskin like Rashi, not like the Shulchan Aruch. Which isn't Rashi is not you don't we don't dismiss Rashi so easily. I mean, it's a big deal. So it's something to rely on in those cases. He says, but right, if you get to start a community from blank, right, that they're not wearing those hats, of course you want to follow Shulchan Aruch, right? If you have no competing reason, follow Shulchan Aruch. As I think to me this is very number one, one of the things that makes the Mishnah Berurah so good. But Rav Nachum, please.
Let me just say my thing that the thing I sent out from the Tzitz Eliezer, he goes one step further. He says you might think it's only Rashi that says this, but he says he's not exactly talking about this case, but he's talking about hats, and he says it's not just Rashi. There must have been many Rishonim or many poskim that said this, that were lenient, and we just don't have them written down because the fact that people are doing it means that there must have been Rishonim who were allowing it. If the world is noheg lahakel, and yet we see all of these poskim saying it's usser, it must be that there were a lot of poskim that said it was mutter, and we just don't know about them. So it's an amazing idea what he's saying. It's amazing because it's he's inventing this. He's inventing a lot of unknown poskim who didn't bother to write down what they had to say, and he's asserting that they must exist.
Yeah.
Which is a sort of one step further from the general idea that if you see that people are doing it, then it must be all right.
Yeah. So it's I didn't look here in particular, but the Aruch HaShulchan in several times says that when your community is doing something that seems to be a violation, but there's an opinion out there that didn't become psak halacha, like we're allowed to grab that opinion and use it if necessary. He's not going to the extent of the Tzitz Eliezer, who's saying it must be that actually that opinion did exist, and it kind of kept going. And it's not by accident people do this. I want to do, just based on time, one more. Let's move forward because I think it's an important thing, and it came up before Seif Mem Vav in the Shulchan Aruch. And maybe Alan, you want to read Mem Vav?
Yeah. Gadim hashrim b'mayim asur lenagvan samuch laesh. All right, this was your mittens.
Yeah.
Wet clothes. You can't dry them close to the fire.
Yeah. So, right. The idea here, if you look at I'll just look at Kuf Ayin, Sif Katan's Kuf Ayin in the Mishnah Berurah. I'll read it. Samuch la'esh. He says, "V'hu adin d'asur lahanicham ala tanur b'makom sheyad soledet bahem." Right. You can't also place them on the furnace, right, when it's hot enough that it's yad soledet. Then it's truly cooking the water.
This is actually a kula. He's telling you that if the yad is not soledet, but you could put it on.
Absolutely do it, right? Yeah, it's seemingly. But we all people make this mistake. People they dry their clothes, their wet clothes on the really hot furnace on Shabbat. He said it's not even patur, this is mutar. You're allowed to do it. As long as you don't do it in the way that you stretch out clothes to dry, in that same way. That's the previous seif to this, right? You can't do that, even bechadre chadarim. But I just wanted to show this as I think an important piece. And there's also, we don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to, in the last few seconds, add, there's really two types of schita on Shabbos, right? One is schita where you're trying to get the water out and like get something from the liquid. And that's the schita we often talk about, in terms of the malacha. But the second one, which is here, is schita is also schita for milaben, right? It's a type of washing, right? It's a way of cleaning clothes is to wring them out. And so you're actually maybe doing a different malacha with schita with these clothes, but that is still a malacha of milaben and not of lischot. So, which is really schita is really dash, isn't it? I think dash is the malacha of schita at the end of the day. So. And the schita where you want the thing, not where you're trying to get the water out to clean the thing. So I wanted just to understand those two different categories. There was a Mishnah Berurah that mentions it, but I don't remember where it was right now. So, all right, Yeshar Koach, everybody. That is, we move on to Shin Bet next week. Not that Shin Aleph has ever ended. It's such a great Siman with so many good examples in it. So it's,
Joe.
and everyone have a good Shabbos.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you.